welcome again to the Rolling Help Foundation. For those of you joining us for the first time, our mission is to raise money for a 501c3 public charity, and then we make donations and provide support to small-town food banks across America. This past week, we traveled to Grand Junction, Colorado, and took a close look at the impact the pandemic is having on this town, and we interviewed Alisha Wenger. Alisha is the executive director of the Community Food Bank of Grand Junction and has been involved in nonprofits and food security issues all of her adult life. She has served in the Peace Corps in Africa, and she has worked for governmental agencies in the Denver area. But the Western Slope is her home, and she returned in late 2019 to serve in this leadership capacity for this organization that has actually been serving the needy of Grand Junction for over 40 years. Let's now join our executive director, Tony Eddles, as he talks with Alisha about the challenges of running a food bank in a small town in western Colorado.
So hey guys, we are at the Community Food Bank of Grand Junction, and we are with Alisha Wenger, who is the executive director. And I'd like to start by talking a little bit about your background, because you have a long history in food insecurity and in some places that aren't very familiar around here. You spent time in Africa. So tell us a little bit about that and maybe some of the similarities, though, that you see between the two.
Sure. Yeah, so, I was born and raised in the Grand Valley here in Grand Junction. I had a single mom, but I spent most of my time with my dad, who was upper middle class. So I really got to see both sides of the coin, if you will. And, my mom, when I was here visiting, we absolutely, were living in Section 8 housing and relying on food pantries. And so, even from a very young age, I've been involved in food and food insecurity. I worked in restaurants for 10 years through high school and college. And then I went into the United States Peace Corps. So I was an English major, but I took a chance. They asked me if I wanted to do agricultural work, and I said, sure. It's a service mindset. And so I went and lived for just under 3 years in sub-Saharan Africa in a subsistence farming community in northern Togo. Of a village about 1,000 farmers. And so completely off the grid, no electricity, no running water. Working with farmers for improved gardening practices. We did some work with environmental, youth is always the future. So we did a lot of work, teaching about improved gardening practices for food insecurity work with kiddos in Togo. I worked a lot with women's groups, teaching them how to make soy bread, teaching them how to make preserves and canning things, dehydrating food. Because, subsistence farmer means they have no income. Well, we've been around for about 42 years. Right. So, we've been growing and evolving. And so I've been here as the director
But you landed 2 weeks before the pandemic started.
60 days.
60 days. I'm sorry.
God, thank
to
goodness
take
it
over.
wasn't 2 weeks.
So you hit the ground running because what we have been trying to get across to our audience is the fact that this is not a COVID issue. I mean, frankly, Chris and I started to plan our campaign and our foundation out prior to COVID. Right. And now COVID has hit. And what fascinates in a sad way are these people that are kind of caught in the middle that aren't, maybe they're not on food stamps yet, they're not getting a lot of government support, but because of loss of employment and other circumstances that are real prevalent right now, they find themselves in your line.
Yeah, I would say it's just exacerbated the situation that was already there, and it's really put a spotlight on it where a lot of people maybe weren't paying as much attention before COVID, before we all saw the lines of cars around the blocks and the empty grocery store shelves. And we are part of the food system here in the United States, right? So for folks that like you were saying, there's a variety of circumstances, not always what you think,
Right.
We serve some homeless folks, but it's actually a very small percentage of the people that we serve. Mostly because the food we serve, you need a kitchen, you need
Right.
a refrigerator. And so, I think it's not only unemployed people, it's underemployed people.
Yes. Yeah.
I was talking about my story growing up. My mom always had a job.
Right.
But she was a high school dropout,
Yeah.
and so she couldn't make enough to make ends meet,
Yeah.
and was on government assistance, and it still wasn't enough. And
Yeah.
so, it's the underemployed. That's why a lot of us are talking about cost of living. Like, those are the true root causes of hunger in the United States. And then, you asked about us doing education. That's something that we're making a priority. We've always had nutritious food as part of our mission statement. And I think that's part of the problem as well, is like oftentimes food pantries, and we're always grateful, but people will just take whatever we get,
Right.
and then give it out to folks, and it's not always in their best interest. A lot of the folks that come here are also dealing with diet-related illnesses and chronic disease, like diabetes and hypertension
Right.
and heart disease. And so if we're just giving them cakes and
Right.
donuts and white bread and a lot of things, that's actually exacerbating the issue,
Yeah.
right? Because that also puts a lot of strain on our health system and other societal issues. So it's really complicated and
Yeah,
interconnected.
I'm sure. Because in order to get calories out to people, you have to, you end up, these are
Right,
things
I mean,
that
you
you're
see
going to
right
receive.
here we have
You're not
cake
going to
mix,
throw it
you know?
out. Yeah, exactly.
But we try to make it so our basic food box is very nutritionally based. It's based on the My Plate guidelines. We do the best we can to get, healthier whole grain items. We don't buy ramen, because the other thing is most of the time folks, those are the things they can't afford, right?
Right.
They can't afford the milk. They can't afford certain items. That unfortunately, soda is cheaper than water in some
Yeah.
of our stores,
Right.
right? And if you can feed your entire family for $12 at McDonald's,
Yeah.
they have, these mothers and these families have to make really hard decisions. And it's not always up to them, right? Like, they have a pretty limited budget, and they have to do the best they can
Right.
to make ends meet. And so with COVID, it's just like put
Yeah.
such a more, it's really exacerbated
Strained it.
everything.
Because this area had, and probably still has, a pretty solid employment base with oil and gas, ranching. I see a little bit of
Agriculture.
tech is coming in, but like everywhere, there's been an impact. So
We've been really fortunate here on the Western Slope. I think we have the advantage, as we've seen throughout all of the COVID situation, is the urban centers are getting hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And, we're a little bit more spread out here.
Right.
And I think also we just have a really amazing community. It's a community of a smaller size, and I've just been amazed all year of the generosity. Our volunteers who've stepped up to the plate to,
Yeah.
literally risk their lives and continue to help feed our community members in need. And, economically, it has been shifting here in the Grand Valley. So when I was a kid, there was very limited economic jobs or,
Right.
or means outside of energy and oil and gas. So, they've been working really hard over the last, let's say, decade or two to diversify the economy. The university has come in and helped a lot.
Sure.
And there's some tech jobs, there's some incentives for people to move out here. We're enterprise zone.
Right.
But you could make the argument, are those really creating jobs for the people at the lower echelons of society?
Yeah.
Or is it luring new people and hire,
Right.
more specialized talent out here?
Yeah, and it doesn't solve the problem of the lower end of the service industries
Sure.
and so forth. So, okay, well, this has been enlightening and really interesting, and Rolling Help is going to give you guys a little donation to do what we can to help. Something that's always interesting to us, have you thought about $1 how many meals that
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. So for every $1 donated, we
Yeah.
can provide over 3 meals.
Awesome.
So that is through, we purchase food through Feeding America food banks at
Right.
a discounted rate. We also have great relationships with wholesalers in the valley. We try to support some of the local economy and the farmers as well.
Right.
You know, the Grand Valley, Mesa County is absolutely an agricultural economy at its heart, and so we try to support our farmers, and then we also do
Sure.
grocery rescue efforts that help keep those costs down as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure that we make it 1,000 meals for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right,
That-
Alisha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Boom.